You're listening to Lights Camera Latino, the podcast, hosted by Angel Fabian Rivera. Remember to follow us on our social media platforms as Lights Camera Latino and Angel Fabian Rivera. Hello, everyone. Welcome to Lights Camera Latino, the podcast. As always, this is a place where we dive deep into the captivating world of entertainment with influential Latinos shaping the industry. Woohoo! I am Angel Fabian Rivera, and I'm so excited to be back for another episode because today on Lights Camera Latino, we have a really special guest, someone whose story is all about reinvention, resilience, and helping creators protect what they built. From growing up in the Bronx to serving as an NYPD officer to now being an intellectual property attorney at one of the largest trademark firms in the world, Pablo Segarra has truly lived many lives. He's a trademark attorney, speaker, and podcast co-host with expertise in AI, blockchain, and Web3. What makes Pablo work so important is his mission, empowering entrepreneurs, artists, and innovators to protect their brands and ideas so they can grow without fear. He also serves on nonprofit advisory boards and helps connect business leaders and creators through conference and community work. We're going to dive into what trademarks really are, why they matter so much in entertainment and business, and what creators should know to protect their work. Pablo, welcome to the podcast.
Dime Corillo. No,
How's it going?
We were talking about it. It's like, schedules all over the place. We made it happen. We got to enjoy it. And let's take this time together to really get us something powerful.
Yes, I'm excited. Yes, like you said, like we've been in talks for a while, and I really wanted to bring you in because you bring something different to the industry. And I know my audience here, it's very interested in knowing more about what you do and about, how do we as creators and artists get better in that? Because, I think intellectual property is something that we don't talk about that much.
Yeah.
And, who we are as artists, and we are a brand. And I think that's the most important thing about being an artist. You are a brand, and they don't teach us that in school, man. Like I went to college for acting, and they told me to go and get into character and get out of the character, but that's it. And it's like, there's more to that.
I've got a really good friend that is in the marketing industry for over 40 years. He's been my mentor for my speeches. And, I just saw him this morning, and he runs a workshop called A Brand Called You. And that workshop, I haven't taken it yet. I'm interested. He's floating it around, and I couldn't stop thinking about that the minute that he mentioned it to me, because like you said, that's what we are. We're brands. All of us are brands walking out in the street. That's just what we are. And we have to be able to understand that, move as that, make sure we protect it, right? So that's the importance of this.
Yes, that's very important. We are products. We literally sell ourselves. That's it. Pablo, you grew up in, just a little bit of, about who you are. You grew up in New York, right?
Yes.
With Puerto Rican, right?
I am, I'm officially Nuyorican, right? Mi papá de Ponce, my mom's from the Lower East Side. My family's 100% Puerto Rican. I grew up speaking Spanglish as my first language, learning how to hit a curveball in the middle of the Bronx and Soundview. So I'm from the Bronx 100%. Long, I guess we'll take like the short version as to where I'm at now. I'm actually located right now in the Dominican Republic.
Wow.
So make a full long story that we'll get into. I have been living in the Dominican Republic for the past 8 years. So, I'm only a plane ride away from Puerto Rico, thank God. But at the same time, absolutely love this country, and who doesn't want to live in the Caribbean 24/7?
I know. That's my dream, man. Like I left Puerto Rico 3 years ago is to, to understand the industry and get out there. But my ultimate dream is get back to my island and, keep bringing what we know and what we learn, which is, what you're doing right now there. And I love it. They say like la sangre te llama, like the beach is there, we are all attracted to that somehow.
It's a different feeling, man. It's a different feeling. And, life in New York was not very easy. I grew up in the 80s and early 90s in New York when we were basically, murder capital of the entire United States. Thank God for my family. If I wasn't for, mi papá es músico, right? So he was into
Wow.
music. So I grew up, playing a conga from the minute I could walk.
Eso.
My mom is also an attorney. My mom worked very high up in city government. She was actually deputy mayor of the
Wow.
city under Rudy Giuliani, the first Puerto Rican woman deputy mayor in New York City's history. Very proud of her for that.
Wow.
Yes, Cece, very proud of her for that. But we grew up in chaos, right? Like even with
Mm-hmm.
all that, luckily I had a great family. Um, but because of the chaos of New York at that time, I don't, I'm very grateful that I didn't end up in the street, that I didn't end up like so many of my other friends or family, selling drugs, dealing drugs, getting into drugs. And so
Mm-hmm.
I kind of give that credit to my family 100% for being there for me.
Wow, 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 that's
Yeah,
that's
yeah,
that's amazing, and and again, like I think your journey is fascinating because you also started all this while being at the NYPD, right?
yeah,
And
yeah,
then started working at firms. So how did that path of
yeah,
reinvention bring you into trademark law and entertainment? Like how from that NYPD you ended up here?
yeah, yeah. I'm 42 years old now, and I feel like I've lived like 4 or 5 lives, and I think that's why. Eso porque yo tengo tanta cana aquí. Like I have so many gray hairs because of that. Um, and the thing is that like, so I became a police officer at 21 years old. Again, my family, my mom made a deal with me, and she was like, "This is what you're going to do because they're hiring." This was a couple of years after 9/11, so the
Okay.
department was refiling their ranks because unfortunately we lost a lot of police officers to sickness and just as a result of 9/11. So I was
Mhm.
part of this very large class that filled it in to be able to protect the city. I served most of my career in Washington Heights, over a decade there, which is Little Dominican Republic, and I guess that's how I ended up in Dominican Republic now, right? Because I can do that, right? And from there, I got hurt. I actually got hurt really bad. I had a
Oh,
really severe car accident. I went through a window head first, and
wow.
I got screws in my spine. I got multiple injuries, and
Oh.
so the end of my career as a police officer, I made a decision to go to law school, and I was going to law school at night while I was a cop in the daytime because, as much as the NYPD helped me with my health, I felt that I was still treated as like this broken toy that I just
Mm.
was not very useful to them, and I really did not like that feeling, and I really wanted to
Mhm.
make sure that I went to a job that I would be fighting for people so that they never felt that way.
Yeah.
So I went to law school, and then within a matter of 4 years, 5 years, I graduated law school. I got married, I passed the bar exam, and then I left the country and moved to Dominican Republic. So it's a lot there. So as my journey, right, as to like figuring out, like, okay, what am I going to do as an attorney? What am I going to do in this space, right? Because it was different. I was in my
Mhm.
mid 30s and I had a bad back and recovering from stuff. And it's like, I don't have the energy and I can't restart my whole career from the bottom as if I just
Mhm.
graduated. I couldn't do that. So I really started to just practice on my own and kind of figure it out. I first started really diving into technology with blockchain. I just happened to be at the right time, at the right place in the middle of Miami when NFTs came out, and dove into that world. I was working in the crypto industry for a few years.
Oh.
And that first year in crypto, I really started to fall in love with the intellectual property side of things
Mm.
when you don't normally associate those two. But it's because the company I was working for, we were the first and only company in the world to have Muhammad Ali's officially licensed NFTs. So I really got a good understanding of the intellectual property side and how I can offer athletes, right, this new stream of revenue from this thing that was coming out with NFTs. So I was doing a lot of licensing deals, and by the time I left that company, we had about 30 to 35 different fighters and athletes signed up.
Wow.
And I said, you know what, I've got enough experience here. I'm going to go run my own shop, and was doing my own thing for a couple of years and really just traveling around a lot. I've given 60, 70 talks in Inglés, en Español, in Spanglish, and
Yeah.
everything you could think of in between, in 3 different continents. And then I kind of got burned out. And I really
Yeah.
said, you know what? Me as a business owner running around, my health had a bit of a dip in health with me. And I said, you know what? I need to find a little something more solid, and started looking around. Came across Trademarkia, where I work now, and I said, wow, these people have We have 130,000 clients throughout the world.
Wow.
Right now, I have almost 1,000 something that I'm dealing with personally.
Wow.
And so it's a rush, man. It's a lot of experience. It's a lot of fun, and that's where I'm at now. And the great part about it is that I get to do it fully remote. We are a fully remote company, so I'm still in the Caribbean. I travel a lot. I was just in New York for the Latino Film Festival. I was in Arizona for training before that. I got to go to San Francisco in a couple of weeks for a big trial. So it's a lot of moving around too.
Wow, that's it sounds exciting, like everything you do. We think about attorney, but now you mix it up with something fun too, like keeps you right, like moving, and also it brings you back because you mentioned your dad is also a musician, right? So it brings you to that.
I just say one thing. One thing is that I feel way more comfortable and way happier in a room of creatives than a room full of attorneys. So yes.
There it is.
I'm jealous of
creatives. I love that. Pablo, let's unpack a little bit of what you said, because you mentioned IP, the IP, the famous IP that people talk about. What is an IP for people out there that don't necessarily know? Because we've heard IP. We know Marvel has an IP. We know Disney, Mickey is an IP. What is that?
Yeah, there's three major categories, right? And I didn't learn about this until I went to law school. So the three major categories are: you have trademarks, you have copyrights, and then you have patents, right? Those are the three major ones that every creative needs to understand and really be able to identify, right? So a trademark, think of it as the trademark is the brand. You trademark the name of the company, you trademark the logo of the company, right? That's really the protection that you have, the brand itself, the name, the logo. Angel Fabian Rivera, like you could trademark that in what you do, right? If you have a logo for that, then if it's AFR and that's the logo, we trademark the name and we trademark the logo, right? Then you have what's called copyrights. So copyrights are the creations of the brand, right? So it's like the music you write, it's the shows that you produce, it's the books that you write, the actual creations, the product of it. And then you have patents. Patents are like new discoveries. Apple has a patent on the iPhone because nobody else has created an iPhone like that before, right? So it's like, what's different about your creation? What's the discovery? What's the new product that you have that nobody's ever been done before? So those are patents. And with our company, we work with all three of them. I am not a patent attorney, but I do advise on them. I do help out with just advising with clients, working with my team to figure that out. My main thing is trademarks. I really, really enjoy what I do, and it's all about protecting your brand. So that's why I start from that base, as if you're taking this company seriously. If you're putting time and energy and money into it, we need to protect the name. We need to protect the logo, because it deserves that respect, And if somebody else comes along and tries to use your name, well, we need to be able to have a legal stance to say this is mine and nobody else can use it.
And that's, and because I wanted to ask you, why should someone in entertainment specifically trademark themselves? And I think you mentioned very, as my name, let's put that as an example, right? If I trademark myself, I'm also being smart about nobody else using the same name that I use, because sometimes people choose a different name for their artist name, right?
Right. I'll give you a straight example. That's I don't want to name names because he's kind of famous in New York, but a friend of mine came up to me and said, hey, we did an interview on my podcast, and she came up to me. She said, hey, I want to talk to you about trademarking my name too, right? And I said, okay, sure. Like, let's look into it. She's like, no, but there's an issue. And I'm like, well, what's the issue? She said, just start to Google my name, start to look into it, and then call me when you find the issue. I'm like, okay. I do it. There's the same name. One of them is a porno star, and the other one is in government. So those are two completely different names, right? And two completely different worlds. So a lot of the entertainment industry is that. It's, you don't want to get confusion. You don't want people to confuse you with somebody that you just don't want to be confused with, right? And so that's one part of it, right? And it has to do a lot with just let's say you have a production house, and let's say you're pumping out all these movies. Let's say A24, right? They pump out all these amazing movies. I'm a huge fan of their just everything they put out, right? Because the way it's done, the style it's done. So what if I decide to just do A24 on my own and I put out crap? So then what happens is that you're diluting the name, you're diluting A24, and it's not as, it doesn't seem as successful. It doesn't seem as, powerful as really what the brand is with A24. So in order to keep those protections, in order to go after, I wouldn't say go after, I don't like to be, aggressive like that. It's more like, how do you make sure that there's no confusion between what you're doing and what somebody that sounds like you is doing? And that's the basis of a lot of trademarks, is what's called likelihood of confusion. So basically the trademark office, that's the analysis they always work on. That's kind of like how I live my life at this point, because I've been doing it for so much. It's basically like, what's the level of confusion that somebody would have with your name in the entertainment industry than perhaps, a wrestler, right? Like, you're not doing that, right? But there can be confusion, because if somebody calls you and says, hey, we want to invite you to WrestleMania, and you're like,
yeah,
I don't do
what?
that.
I can learn to fight, but I don't fight.
Right. right. We give you a couple of months of training and you figure it out. But it's like, that's not what I do, right? So that confusion, that's the protection of it, and that's the point of it, is that we want to avoid this confusion as much as possible.
So to keep in that example, can two entities have or exist with the same name? Can they exist, but do they have to be in separate areas? Or if they're in the same, example, like if there's an artist and that has the same name of mine, right, Angel or whatever, and they just call themselves Angel and me too, can we exist? Can we coexist in the same trademark world?
It not necessarily, right? And the good example I always give is Apple, right? Because everybody knows Apple. So Apple, if you try, to take a step back, there's 45 what's called niche classes, right? So as part of my job as a trademark attorney is I have to figure out, where does your goods or services fit into these classes, right? Okay. And the classes are things like merchandise is class 25, downloadable applications is 9, online is 42. So it's like, my job is like in my head already at this point, it's like, where do you fit amongst this? Wine is 33, right? And what happens is that with Apple, let's say, you can't do anything in technology, because they have everything locked up with computers, with AI, with just everything in technology is locked up. But Apple doesn't offer vacations, perhaps. So I can go and I can create Apple Vacation Club. I probably can't use the logo, right? Because that's a little bit, with their power, I wouldn't do that. But at the same time, it's like, but I can create Apple Vacation Club, and as long as Apple's not offering vacations, then what's the issue? Where's the confusion, right? As I go back, there's no confusion. So in the same industry, not really. That's difficult to do. But if it's if you are in entertainment, and then somebody wants to open a car wash and call it the same name, but nobody's going to get confused with that, right? There's two completely different starts. So in the same industry, in the same name, in the same thing, no. But you can have it in opposing industries in different areas. Yeah, that's not a problem. Also, it can't be too similar. So there's a lot of arguments when it comes to attorneys and courts in terms of confusion. Again, it's like, well, there is no right and wrong answer for confusion. There is no yes and no. There is no A to B. So that's where a lot of attorneys make their money, where it's basically saying like, this logo kind of looks like this logo, and they kind of do the same thing. So now we got to fight and go back and forth as to who's right and who's wrong, and then a judge decides.
God, yes, because in my, as I was, I was going to ask about it, because for example, like my name, it has an accent in Fabian, for example, right? Yeah. But what if somebody, names themselves without the accent? That's a different thing, right? But
no, but it still wouldn't work, because
it still wouldn't work, right?
Because
the
what
confusion part.
Gotcha. It's always the perspective of the consumer, right? So it's like me looking at your name, the accent, I may not know what that is. I may see it as, the average, well, I don't want to get into politics or this whole thing with Bad Bunny going
But
on.
yeah.
But you know what I'm saying? Like it could be somebody looks at your name, que no habla español, and it's just like, they don't understand what that accent is. So the person that would understand it is the one that speaks Spanish, but that's the majority of the people in the US speak English. So it's like looking at that name, I can make an argument and say, well, no, it's confusion because somebody doesn't understand the accent doesn't matter. And what also doesn't matter too, that I get a lot of questions about with clients is like, well, what if I just put a "the" in the front of it and I put an S at the end, right? It's like the Angel Fabians, like, no, that won't work either, right? So it's a lot of, again, it's really important when you start the company to really like at least speak to an attorney. You don't necessarily need to file it with them, but at least have an understanding of just what I mentioned, because there is a lot of misunderstanding where people think that, well, if I put an S, if I add something in the front of it, then it's going to make it different. If I spell it different, I get that all the time. What if I spell it different? It doesn't matter to the trademark office.
Because it sounds the same, right? And there are certain ways that you can say, okay, it's replicating what I have. Yeah. Wow, that's very interesting. And one more thing, you mentioned something in the beginning about my name, Angel Fabian Rivera, and AFR, right?
Yeah.
J-Lo, right? Her name is Jennifer Lopez, but she also uses J-Lo. Are those two different trademarks?
Yeah, they are. They're two different. Yeah. What happens is that when I sit down and advise all these companies and all these clients I have, I always say, what are all the public facing things you have? And I give you a good one recently that I just did. It's kind of like a banking software, right? So they're very smart because they protected the logo, which has the name of the banking software in the logo. They protected the name of the company, and then they protected the initials of the company, right? Oh, wow. So it's like they protected AFR, they protected Angel Fabian Rivera, and then there's a logo there for the AFR that they protected as well. So those are three different trademark applications. And the interesting part about J-Lo is that I haven't looked into it, but I'm sure she has her name and then she has J-Lo a part of it, because why? I can come into a courtroom and I can argue J-Lo is not stand for Jennifer Lopez. I can argue that and say that's not true. Well, there's a likelihood of, there's no confusion here. J-Go, right, from Puerto Rico, right? That's another one. Are they similar? They kind of are, right? So it's like, you want to be able to really protect like all of the public facing names, logos, and slogans that you're working on. Like you want to do that as much as possible.
Wow, that's interesting. What are some? I mean, I believe you meet with lots of artists every day. So, what are the most common misconceptions that people have with the trademark part?
Yeah. A lot of it has to do with, I think it's just basically like the two main requirements, right? From the beginning, I do a lot of video advisement because I'm remote. So I do a lot of video phone calls. I do a lot of recorded videos. I do a lot of like online videos just on my own social media to educate as much as possible. Yeah. And the main requirements to get a trademark registered, people get that confused a lot and don't understand it really. One of them is called distinction, right? And distinction is what we talked about, that there can't be a confusion. There can't be a likelihood of confusion. How do we do that? We do search. We search we have our own software that we use to search. The government, the trademark office, it's called the USPTO. They have a website that's free to the public that you can put your name in right now, uspto.gov. You go into the search and you put your name in and it tells you all the people that have trademarked your name, right? And if nobody's there, then you're in a better position because nobody's trademarked it, right? So distinction is the first thing that a lot of people just don't understand. They know that they can't trademark Apple, but they don't understand why they can't trademark Apple, right? So it's that's the reason where there can't be confusion. And then the second part is what's called use in commerce. So not only must there not be confusion, you have to actually show the government how you're using this mark in commerce. So ideally, it's like putting your name on a website and saying, these are all the things I do, these are all the things I offer, matching that to the classes that I mentioned, right? Where it's like class 44 or 40, whatever it is, right? and then showing the government that evidence, right? Taking a screenshot, sending it out to the office in your application, and letting the government know these are the two main things that I have. This is the reason. Sorry, this is the way that I use it in commerce to be able to show. So a lot of people don't understand those two, right? And it's complicated but simple at the same time. It can get very complicated when you go down all the requirements and the needs and the wants. But I've been doing it for such a long time that I'm able to really explain it that way in a much simpler way, because I feel that that's my job, really. I've been translating the law for 22 years, as a cop, and now as an attorney, and it's really no different to me in terms of the communication style, except, I don't have to worry about nobody punching me in the face right now, which is, really great. I'm very happy about that, like running away from me, I'm pretty good with that. Well, sometimes they run away from me, whatever. But it's that. So it's understanding distinction and then use in commerce. Those are the two misconceptions that people kind of get, but they don't really get it after. I have to explain that to them.
Yeah, no, and talking about that, because as creators, we dive deep into this world and we forget about this, right? And then we start using our names, but maybe 5 years from now, somebody else is gonna come to us and say, "Hey, you've been using my name." Yeah. Somebody else already trademarked. How do you recommend someone dives into that? You've been using something, and then they come to you and they say you cannot use it anymore.
Yeah.
What am I gonna do with my name?
It's a tough situation. It's what I literally just had this situation like 2 days ago. What I tell clients is, where are you in terms of your business workflow, right? Have you been in the industry for 10 years or 5 years and you're making a lot of money and you're well known and you're popular, and then somebody comes and says you can't use this name, right? Well, if you've already got the money and you've already been pushing for it, and and to be honest with you, if you have the money to fight against it, because in a business sense, it makes sense for you to fight it, right? And we fight it because it's, at the end of the day, if it's going to take away from your business that you've already been successful in, it's worth fighting for. If you're telling me I'm just starting out and, I've been here a year, 2 years maybe, and nobody's, I'm not that well known, I haven't been making much money off of it, it's not really my first career choice, then I would say, okay, so then let's find another route. Let's figure out a way how to rebrand. Maybe it's time to meet with a marketing company, figure out some sort of rebranding strategy. I can help you with the legal and say, these names would work for you, these names wouldn't, but I can't help you on the branding side. I'm not that smart. You need to figure out your branding on your own.
You need to figure out who you are.
Figure out who you are, right? And then come to me, and from the legal side, I can do the checks, and I do it for free most of the time. I'll do a quick check for you, and get you to understand that. So it really is more like a business decision as to like, how deep are you into the brand, not just the name, but the brand. How deep are you in this brand?
Exactly.
Right? Like, that's what matters the most. Are you knee deep into it where you're about to blow up? Then no, we have to fight for it because it's worth it. And when I say fight for it, it doesn't necessarily mean that we have to go to court and make all these arguments and spend hundreds of thousands of dollars. It could mean, hey, let's go to the other side and say, let's do an agreement where basically you and me agree not to bother with each other, that we're both coexist, and we won't have any problems. I won't go after you, you won't go after me. There's normally an exchange of money in that, right? But if you have it at that time, it's still cheaper than fighting it out in court. So, it's kind of a business cost.
And having to rebrand yourself, because rebranding yourself also, this is a lot of money in there.
Yeah, it's expensive. And you lose a lot of business too, because people are looking for you under one certain thing, and then you change it, and then all of a sudden people don't know who you are, and I which is why, it's the importance of from the beginning having this protection. And I always mention back to Walter Mercado, right? Walter Mercado, his name, he did not own his name at first, right? It was owned by another company that he was in, that was business with him, right? That company technically owned his name. They had a bad breakup, and then he couldn't use the name. So that's where he changed his name to something else for a short amount of time frame, right? Something Ashanti, I forget the full name, but he had to use that name. So think about like his career at that point. He was worldwide fan. Everybody knew who he was.
Walter Mercado. Everybody know Walter Mercado, huh?
Yeah, you still know him as well. I used to watch it with my grandma all the time. You still know who Walter Mercado is. But he wasn't using the name at that point. And so it cost him a lot of time, energy, and money to go back after the management company and get his name back. He eventually got it back. But imagine if he would have just protected it from the first place. Daddy Yankee is another one. Daddy Yankee, unfortunately, had a divorce, got into a huge issue because his wife's lawyers said, well, Daddy Yankee is owned by the production company, by the label. Sorry, it's owned by the label. It's not owned by you personally. And who owns the label? The wife and the husband. So therefore, the wife owns part of your name too. And so he got it resolved, but he's been, if you look at the filings, Daddy Yankee has filed for his name, Ramon Ayala. He's filed for Daddy Yankee under his name, Ramon Ayala, recently, past couple of years because of that. So it's super important. And I do feel that as far as just Latinos in general, we're great at creation. We have too big of a hearts because we tend to create and give. And
exactly.
We forget that middle legal step. We just forget.
I think we're just too scared of getting into that nitty gritty, right? Like that, because I've seen it and I've lived it too. For me, it's like, it's a little like, it makes you uncomfortable. It makes you feel like, oh wait, money, there's a lot of laws in there involved, and we tend to be scared of it. But by getting someone like you who knows this industry and who knows what they're dealing with, that's what we need to look for, And I think we need to be better in that. I saw something.
No, I was just going to say, and let's not forget that there's still, in my mind, hundreds of thousands of stories to be told in our communities, and we need to be able to change that to make sure that we can get those protections. I'm still waiting for somebody to do a Fania All Stars, series, right? Like Netflix, where are you? Like, let's get a Fania All Star series going. But we need the people. But think about that. Like, well, who's gonna make the money off of the story of Fania? Right? There's a lot of people involved. We don't know, we got to look into the record labels. We got to look into who owns what's names, who owns. So there's a lot of confusion there in it too, that just in general, our history of our communities, it's a lot of handshake deals that doesn't hold up in court. It's really hard. It's really difficult.
Wow. And I'm going to ask you, when do you think an artist or a creator should trademark their brand and their name?
Yeah. It's a question I get a lot, right? And my answer has kind of changed over the years, but I think the best time is when are you really getting those? I used to say, like, when you think you're about to blow up, right? Like that used to be my main answer, but that's more of a feeling, right? It's like, that's not an actual time frame. That's not an actual, like, something to hold on to. I think it's more, when do you start getting offerings? When are people coming to you and saying, we want you in this movie, we want you at our event, we want you at our Netflix series, we want you in our, like, when these people start to approach you and start to come to you, and it's not you going out and pitching yourself to everybody, because you've already done that for such a long time, you already have the business case, that people already know who you are. I think that's the time to do it, right? And I always think that if other people see that in you, right, then other people can take that away from you, because you don't know, because you're going into rooms and spaces that you haven't been before. So the thing is that you don't know who's in that room and who's in that space. And every time you level up, there's more eyes on you, right? So when it starts to get to that point, I would say, okay, let's start to really consider trademarking your name in the specific industry that you're in. Because the next time you walk into a room, the next time you walk into a panel and there's 300 to 400 people there, somebody may just walk away and say, you know what, that's a good idea. I'm going to go do it. And then what?
There it is.
Can't do anything about it. Yeah. So it's definitely that time frame,
Yeah, no. And with, because we also have to be very careful, because like you mentioned that the example of Walter Mercado, we sometimes create these characters or create these personas under companies.
Yeah.
And then if we want to continue doing that, then that's when it gets messy, right?
If you notice, even even, Santo Benito, right? Even Bad Bunny. There's filings recently of his stuff because there was a company, for example, in Florida that they were using his imagery on a beer, and it's called Santo Benito, was the name of the beer in Florida, right? So even he had to go after them to protect this because he's like, wait a minute, you're literally using my image on beer. Like, what the hell? I didn't agree to this. And as a result of that, I've looked into the filings and he started to actually register his name, which he didn't have before, which is really interesting, right? That wasn't done till further into his career, right? Wow. A couple of years ago, I'm not talking about 8-9 years ago, I'm talking about recently, he started to actually get those trademarks in place. So there's also the, as I mentioned, like the risk of like, if you don't trademark it at the point that I was saying you're at, when you do get to the next stage and do get to the next level and you are famous and you are powerful and you are all that, then what happens? Well, what happens is that somebody else may just say, well, I'm going to put his name or her name on my cups and whatever. They're not going to do nothing to me. If you don't have those things in place, it's kind of hard to fight it. You need those things in place at the beginning. So the differentiation between like your record label and you, right? Artists need to really just do it individually. There's another strategy here when it comes to who do you register the trademark under? Is it your company or is it you personally? That all depends, right? A lot of that depends on, do you have partners in the company and the both of you are gonna do something together? Then it should be under the company, right? Because there's more people involved. If you as your own person and you as your own creative, you have every right to do it on your own without the company. There's no reason why you can't trademark your own name. And then what you do is that you give the company a license to use it, right? So they have a license, you grant them a license, no problem to use it. There's normally payment in there. There's normally something in there that says, okay, you could use my name, no problem. And that's like the different type of strategies that I'm always trying to kind of work through, like, well, who's gonna own this name? Is it the company or is it you individually? And sometimes it makes more sense individually. Sometimes it makes more sense for the company.
Yeah. But that's all gonna depend, right? The type of thing that you're trademarking at this point. That's good to know, and everybody needs to be very careful when they do this, and they have to really understand it before moving forward.
Yeah, it can cost you a lot of money, and then you're wrong at the end of the day. Like
exactly, and things get messy. Things can get messy. Like what happened again? Walter Mercado. The relationship broke up in a messy way. So he still wanted to use a name, so it was hard for him. So we have to be very careful with that. Pablo, can you walk us really quickly of the process of trademarking a name or a brand? What does it look like?
So what you do is that, first of all, as I mentioned, we always want to focus on that distinction and use in commerce, right? We just want to focus on that. So distinction is the main thing. There can't be confusion, right? So number one, I always say is uspto.gov. There's a free trademark search there. That's a public database open to everybody. Put the names in there that you're thinking of and see what pops up, right? You never know. That's the first step. Looking in that research and that search button, there's going to be descriptions, right? And when you look at the descriptions, figure out, is this what I'm doing too, right? If I'm selling frying pans and under Segarra, and there's another Segarra out there that is making movies, there's no confusion, obviously, right? It's very common sense. It's like, well, there's no confusion here because nobody's going to think that I'm the one selling frying pans, right? So that's the first step, right? Is really having an understanding what else is out there. What do I have to worry about, right? So you don't go through this whole process and then get a letter that you're being sued, right? That's the first step. The second step is filling out the application, right? You do not need to be a lawyer to do it. Anybody could do it, but I always say, at least speak to me, right? At least get some advice from me before you fill it out, because if you do it wrong, it's going to be triple the price, right? From the government, and probably for me too, because I'm going to be pissed off that you didn't listen to me. Right? So it's good. Like, it's a lot. It's a lot of time into that. You fill out the application, you go through the whole process, and then you literally just wait, right? You send it into the government. Within 6 to 8 months, the government assigns an attorney to it from the government side and says, okay, either this application is good and we're going to go forward, or there's an issue. And if there's an issue, they send you a rebuttal, right? It's called an office action, where it's basically like, it could be anything from that confusion, right? I argue a lot of confusion cases, and it's the most complex because it has to be the law. I have to bring in examples. I have a drafting team. It takes a long time. It could be something as simple as you forgot to, you gave them like a PO box address instead of your business address, right? Because an address, a domicile address is a requirement, right? So that office action piece ranges, right? If we don't get that, or when we resolve that, then it goes to the next step, which is called publication. In the publication period, the public has 30 days to say, this is my trademark, and fight it. 9.7, 9.8 out of 10 times that doesn't happen. Once you get to that point, as far as I'm concerned, I just say, congratulations, you're gonna get the trademark. And then, 6-7 months later, you get your trademark. So it takes about 12 to 15 months to get a trademark from the government. But the good thing is that you're protected from day one. So the minute you file the paperwork, you have protection. And that protection is what's called a legal presumption, where it means you can go to any federal court in the entire United States. I mean, granted a lot of other things, but you can go to a federal court in the United States and say, this is my trademark. I have been using it. They're infringing, they're using it without my approval. If you don't have that trademark, then you have to prove that in court. And that's kind of difficult, right? So that's why it's also like, having this trademark gives you that legal basis to stand on and say, nobody else can use this except us. If you don't have that trademark, it's murky. It gets very murky. You have to prove dates, you have to prove time. It's very difficult to prove that afterwards.
Wow. Well, so it's not the end of the world process, right? So if you really need to do this, you just need to do it. You said, like, get someone like you, speak to you first, right? In order to understand everything and have everything, go as smooth as possible, and do your research too, because yes, like you said, like, do it yourself, like, find if there's somebody else using this name or your service and all that, and make sure that you can use it, and then you can go forward with it.
And that's the thing, is that it's altogether, it's probably starting with like the government filing fees and all, it's probably less than $1,000. It's like $800 or something like that, right?
There it is.
The thing is that with that, it's a very high return on ROI, because your trademark is protected at least 5 years. And then you do a renewal process, it's called, and then you get it protected for 10 years. So it's like every 5 or 10 years you have to redo it. But at the same time, like, it's still not that much in comparison to a lot of other services and legal services you have. And then also, it's not that much because you're not going to court. You have protections in place, right? Like,
exactly.
It saves you money. It saves you, could be up to, court is $100,000, $200,000, right? So it's like 10% of that, and you have this name protected, and you can go after anybody else that's using it.
Wow. I want to ask you this question. There's a lot happening with technology and AI today, right?
Yeah.
How has the trademark law evolved? And when we're talking about names and use of image and faces and replicating that, or using the voice, or what have you seen? Being on the inside.
Yeah. So I am a part of the New York State Bar Association task force, right? And we've done a lot of. I've trained like, I don't know, 300 or 400 attorneys on just like artificial intelligence, right? Alone, and blockchain and crypto and all that too. And the law it's not caught up. It's not going to be caught up. It just never is, right? That's just kind of the way we roll. And I gave a talk on this. I gave like a workshop at VidCon a couple of months ago, where I told the audience, I said, I don't even have to come to this conference, right? And VidCon is like the largest like YouTube conference, right? I don't even have to come to this conference. I can go to the VidCon webpage, and I can go through everybody's websites, everybody's transcripts. I can download all your video podcasts, And you know what? I can put it into a ChatGPT project, create my own thing that want to sound like you, and you can't do nothing about it. There's nothing you can do about it, right? So that's kind of where we're at, unfortunately.
Wow.
There's been guidance from the trademark office and the copyright office. They're two different offices, right? So the trademark office has basically said, if you use AI to create names or create logos, it's fine. There's no big deal, right? Like as long as there's a human involved in it. The copyright office is more complicated, but they've said similar stuff where it's like, depending on how much a human is involved in these prompts and in this AI creation, will give you a protection. And there's a famous comic book that was created fully with AI. And AI, the copyright office said, we'll give you protection of the words, but not the images, because the images were 100% AI, right? So there's a little bit of a distinction there between that. But what I'm nervous about, I guess I'll say, is that there's no full protections for somebody copying my name like this in imagery and my voice and putting it into something else. There's just really, like, if you go on Amazon now, right? Even today on Amazon, and I write a book, right? Let's say I write a book on, my 10 principles of life, blah, 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 whatever that is, right? Somebody, and it happens right now. Somebody else with an AI machine can buy that PDF, put it into the AI thing and say, these are the perspectives on the book from Pablo, right? And it's not the same book. AI created that separate book. But guess what? I can go after them Amazon and take it down, maybe. Me going into a courtroom and suing them, probably not, right? Because there's no real protection or real teeth like to really dig into. And then the other thing too is that it's getting very murky when it comes to copyrights. That's the big issue when it comes to AI. Trademarks, not so much, but copyrights are the big issue, where even recently, I think it was even yesterday or today, OpenAI, they came out and they said that if you want copyrighted items removed, then you need to approach us and tell us, right? Which is kind of crazy, because it's like, but you're gonna just take my stuff, and
Exactly.
I don't know, how am I supposed to know that you've taken that?
How do I know that you have it? Yes, exactly.
That, right? Like, how do I know you even had that? So, I am very positive with AI, because I use it every single day. I mean, I got ChatGPT everywhere, right? My whole house is ChatGPT'd up, for real. And I use it for everything, right? But at the same time, like, I know that the value of human interaction and human expertise, as far as I'm concerned, my rate just went up, because yes, I'm using ChatGPT, but at the same time, I can sit here and explain to you the law like we're done today without a problem, right? And really be able to translate all of these different areas of life into one single cohesive communication. You can't do that on ChatGPT. I can put that into it's not going to come out, right? So it's a lot of excitement that I feel for it, but at the same time, a lot of anxiousness and nervousness as to I don't see anybody really protecting the creator, the consumer, the creative. I don't really see those protections in place. I don't see the government coming out and saying, hey, we need to protect all of these copyrighted works that you're doing, that these film production studios are doing. I just don't see that. And then at the end of the day, unfortunately, businesses are going to business. And if they can get 20 hours of production for half the staff, they're going to use AI and do it, So the last thing I'll leave with AI, it's like, if we replace 20, 30, 40, 50% of jobs with AI, where do those people go? Like, what are they going to do? There's no skills, upskill programs that the government's created. There's no, there's a couple of states, right? Like California has, of course, California with all the actors and actresses, they have I think it's San Marino County, I'm going to say, they actually have a law that's been put in place that says the government cannot fire anybody and replace them with AI, right? So we need more of that protection as well, too, when it comes to AI.
There was a big thing that came out just a couple of days ago with this actor that was created with AI. I don't know if you saw it, but there were already a lot of agents talking about getting that AI actor into their representing them, and SAG-AFTRA came out and they spoke about that. They're not going to tolerate that. They're not going to accept that.
Yeah. Yeah.
But this is just showing you, what's happening right now and what this can evolve into.
Yeah, and it's again, it's like we're at a point that it's not that it can change, it's already changing the world, right? Like
it's here. Yeah, it's not going to go anywhere.
It's not going anywhere, right? And so it's like, how do we navigate that? How do we figure that out together? I do think there's a lot of course, positive people that are trying to do the right thing and protect us as much as possible. But I just think currently with this administration, that's not at the forefront.
Mm-hmm.
They don't give a shit.
That's not going to be, yeah.
You know, so maybe the next time around, but which is why as creatives, working with attorneys, working with your agents, we have to make sure that we protect everything in the contract. And the only way to really protect everything is privately, right? Not waiting for the government to make a law, but privately in a contract that you say literally in the contract, which I'm very happy because I went to the New York Latino Film Festival 2 weeks ago, and that was in the contract. It says we are not able to use your name, image, or likeness for our AI training model. So I saw that, I lit up. I was like, holy crap, this is the first time I've seen this. Amazing, and they're doing the contract with me. Amazing, right? And I actually said that on stage, right? So it's like making sure the contracts, the brand deals, whatever it is you do, there's a clause in there that says that you cannot use me, my name, image, and likeness. You cannot recreate me. You cannot recreate my points and then just run wild with it on your own. Like, you need me to actually do that. So that's an important part of this too, where even contract law is changing as a result of AI.
Wow, this is crazy. I mean, the world is changing.
Now you see why I have these gray hairs, right?
Yeah, that's why you got that. Yeah, but I'm grateful and to have people like you, right? Because and also you're a Latino involved in all this and knowing what's happening inside and finding ways to help these creators, these artists to like protect their image, protect their brand as much as they can, right? Even with AI.
I was when I went to the New York Latino Film Festival a couple of weeks ago, I was very happy, very excited, very humbled to be there on stage with some really great content creators, right? Jasmine Ruiz, Tim Rivera, like really, really awesome people that had, 10 times the amount of followers that I did. But at the same time, I was also a little disappointed because when I got off stage, I was the only lawyer in the room. And so where are my other Latino lawyers and intellectual property? Not a lot. And I've done full presentations in Dominican Republic in Spanish doing this. I've done it in English in New York. I've done it in Colombia, in Bogota. So it's like I can get into these rooms and really have these conversations with people that are actually being affected by it, because that's where I want to be. But I do get disappointed that where are the other Latino lawyers in this space? I don't see them. I don't know. Maybe they're there and they're just on LinkedIn. Maybe they don't want to go to these events. I don't know. Yeah. Reach out to me if you're around, because I feel lonely. It's crazy. It's crazy.
But at least you are someone who's getting out there and talking about these things, because I do believe it's so important. And again, like I said in the beginning, as artists, we go into this world thinking that we're just going to create and everything is happy and everybody's going to be good with us and the world is rainbows, but it's not. And I love that you're outspoken now, that you're being outspoken and you're being out there and you're talking about this in your in your social media as well, and you talk about the importance of it, because I believe it's so it's something that we don't talk about enough. We need to talk about. We need to have this messy conversation before it gets even messier. Like you said, if you don't do this now, then you're going to get to a point where somebody's going to come to you and sue you because you're being using their image or their name or whatever, and you didn't know about it. So I do believe. And
the conversation to avoid all that messiness, it's simply there's nothing wrong with protecting your name. There's just that's a thing that we have in our community, right? It's like, vergüenza. I don't know what it is. I don't know how to explain it.
Yeah, it's a misconception out of it. Yeah, un poco de vergüenza, yeah.
Yeah, it's like un poco de vergüenza. It's like, I can't be outspoken and say, no, that's my name, actually, like, you shouldn't be using it. because everybody feels bad. It's like, but I'm not trying to make you feel, I'm trying to protect, this is my job, this is my career, this is my life. I'm trying to make sure that that's protected. And it doesn't mean that I can't work with you. It doesn't mean I can't do business with you. We just have to have a clear delineation and a boundary that says, this is my name, you can't use it for that. And that's it. Let's go, let's work together. Let's make money. You know, no big deal.
It is.
But I think that conversation, which is why I like to go to more events like the Latino Film Festival, right? Like to really have that conversation as an audience open, because we need to start having that.
We need to, and we're doing it. And I'm so thankful to have you here because, you know, I think this topic is so important, and we just talk about trademarks. So imagine if we go nitty gritty into everything else, there's so much more out there. But I think, you know, as creators, we need to start with the basics. Yes. You know, once you get to that point, you need to protect yourself. You need to protect who you are, and, you know, and that's just, you know, be proud of what you do and the work you do. And, you know, this will make even like having your name trademarked makes your work even more powerful, I believe.
Yeah,
you know?
Of course. So one thing too to remember is that it's a little bit different for an artist and a company, right? I also worked with a lot of startups, and I still work with a lot of startups in the tech industry. And I always tell them that if you create this company and you're going to get to the point that somebody's going to acquire the company, somebody's going to, you know, they're like, you know what, you guys are doing great. We're going to give you $50 million. We're going to buy this company from you because we believe it could be 500 million. And if you want to take the exit now, take it, right? I have a couple of clients that are actually getting to those points, right? The first thing they're going to ask for is, well, do you own your name? Do you own your logo? What's in the folder? What's in the data room of the intellectual property that you have? What is it, right? And I always tell people the power of a logo. I had before I became an attorney, before I was practicing law, I was already an attorney, but before I was practicing law, I had a travel company, right? That you know, had a horrible breakup, unfortunately, but at the same time, we did a lot of really great stuff, and I'm very proud of the work that we did. And I had a man that potential investor that's worth almost $700 million sit down with me at a table and say, you know what? I got more money than you. I'm smarter than you. I got 15 lawyers that you guys don't have nothing. But you know what I don't have? I don't have that logo that you have. I don't have that name that you have. And that's why I want to work with you so we can make money together and make a business out of this name and this logo you have. So don't think that your name and your logo are not worth it. Like there's going to be people out there that are like, wow, this is dope, right?
It is.
So it's always worth protecting from the beginning and making sure that when you get to that point that you have that conversation, that potential conversation pops up, you already own the name, you already own the logo, and you don't have to worry about it. And it's, you know, peace of mind.
Yeah. There it is. That's a beautiful piece of advice, you know, about who you are, about your brand. Pablo, again, man, thank you so much for this conversation. Like I learned so much. I'm just here taking notes of everything because it's so important. And you know, here in Atlanta where I am, I don't think we talk about this. I don't think I know of an artist here who has, you know, the knowledge of all this and trademark themselves. So, you know, I want to bring more awareness to the people here and my community here too, and talk about this, have these conversations and bring you into the room. So, you know, I want everyone to understand this. I want everyone to have access to this, you know, and that is as easy as reaching out to someone like you and say, hey, this is it. This is what I want to do. Right.
My email is always available. Pablo@trademarkia.com.
There it is.
Send me an email, whatever questions you have, whatever you need, send it to me. I'll send you a nice video explaining my thoughts. It's just as simple as that. That's really all it is.
I love that. Thank you again for putting yourself out there. Again, I said it before, but being that pillar in this, you know, in this crazy industry that we live in, you know, we chose the entertainment industry because we love art, but we also need to remember that it's a business as well, right? There's a business side of it that we forget about, and we need to be more aware of that. And you know, we need to get to that point as Latinos. Again, we tend to like forget about that side, but 100%. We're changing that. You know, you're changing that, and one step at a time. Pablo, again, thank you so much, man, for this. And you know, I always like to before we finish, I always like to ask the guest one piece of advice to give to a young artist, a young entrepreneur out there who doesn't know how or where to start. What do you tell them?
I would say, don't be afraid of failure. I created a whole podcast series on it, and that whole podcast series was part of the reason why I actually got my job today, because my CEO really liked the podcast, right? So don't be afraid of failure. It's simply a part of the journey to success. And I fail at so much stuff. I continuously fail at a lot of things, right? And it's just part of getting better and improving. It's just failure. So don't be afraid. Don't think that it's the end of the world because maybe you went to some sort of a casting call and nobody got you. Maybe you made a film that bombed. Maybe you made some music that went nowhere. There's hundreds of thousands of people out there that bombed, that went nowhere, that did nothing the first couple of years, and then all of a sudden, now they're the biggest people in the world, biggest artists in the world, biggest musicians, biggest directors, biggest actors that you ever heard of. Some of them, some of these actors, right? Like, who is it? Is it Stallone or is it Harrison Ford? They became actors at like 40 or something. Like, it's like me starting now to be an actor and then I become Harrison Ford. It's
Viola Davis, her career took over when she was like in her 40s. So same thing.
That's what I'm saying. Like, I can't even imagine going to do that now, and it's like, it's the failures. She went through 20 years probably of failures and got to the point that when the success came, it's like, well, I'm going to work harder to make sure that I can stay here, So don't be afraid of failures. Just don't be afraid of them.
I love that, Pablo. Thank you for that advice. You mentioned your email, but how can people see? Because I know in Instagram you post a lot of information about this. How can people reach out to you there? Where can they find you?
Yes, it's Pablo Segarra, ESQ, Pablo Segarra, same thing as my last name here, ESQ at the end of it. So it's just one word like that. Send me a DM if you got questions from there too. And the best way to get in touch with me is either on Instagram, actually, or through my email at pablo@trademarkia. Either way.
Thank you so much, Pablo. And thank you, everyone out there, for listening to this episode. I think, Pablo is such an excellent, person who knows all about this. So don't be afraid to reach out to him if you have any questions. He's very accessible. I found Pablo. We've never actually met in person. And I found Pablo and I was like, the information that he's putting out there is so important and so needed. And I remember reaching out to you and you accepted right away of like doing this. So thank you again for doing this, doing for the community.
Thank you.
I think it's so important.
And thank you for what you're doing too, man. Thank you for even mentioning, having the conversation, reaching out, because it is important. The people that I'm an attorney, I'm not the creative side. So it's like people from the creative side need to speak to each other and understand the importance of it. So thank you for bringing me on. I really appreciate it.
Yeah. Oh, thank you again. Thank you again, Pablo. And everyone out there, remember to follow Pablo on Instagram. Remember to follow us as Lights Camera Latino. My IG is Angel Fabian Rivera. Thank you again for listening to another episode of Lights Camera Latino. And I always like to end up with this phrase that says, when life knocks you down, levántate con más fuerza, keep fighting. Hasta la próxima. This was Lights Camera Latino, the podcast.